The next big baddie of the MCU will be Kang the Conqueror, who even now has already been introduced as a much bigger threat than Thanos ever could, and the confirmation of the two upcoming Avengers movies and their titles hints towards that. An even bigger event than the Infinity Saga ever was. The Multiverse Saga hype train has begun, and all of us here are aboard. Are you? The Avengers might have fought through the Infinity Saga, which also marked the end of Phase 3 of the MCU. And even though we're still in Phase 4 of the MCU, our eyes are already set towards Phase 5 and Phase 6, two time periods that will see the continuation of the MCU altogether, something which was showcased at this year's San Diego Comic-Con a week ago. MCU's Phase 4 will pass without an Avengers movie, a pattern we never saw coming. However, Phase 6 of the MCU will give us yet another thing to remember the time period by: 2 Avengers movies. Yes, you heard us right, 2 Avengers movies. President of Marvel Studios Kevin Feige also revealed the titles for the said movies, with them being Avengers the Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars, with both movies releasing in that sequence. The news about the upcoming Avengers movie came at the Hall H sector of the San Diego Comic-Con, but only after Marvel Studios already announced a bunch of other projects that they'll release before Avengers the Kang Dynasty releases, including the likes of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Secret Invasion, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Echo, Season 2 of Loki, The Marvels, Blade, Ironheart, Agatha Coven of Chaos, Daredevil Born Again, Captain America New World Order, and Thunderbolts, all of which will take place in Marvel's Phase 5 of the MCU, with so many other TV shows and movies yet to be announced that will occupy the remaining spots in Phase 6. And we're mentioning all of these projects as we think all of them, more or less, will have some kind of an impact in the events to come in the Avengers the Kang Dynasty, and then in Avengers Secret Wars as well, with the entire thing, or all the events that took place and will take place in the upcoming 3 years will all fall down under the same banner, the Multiverse Saga. As it stands right now, the 2 official dates for the movies are the 2nd of May 2025 for the Avengers the Kang Dynasty and the 7th of November 2025 for the Avengers Secret Wars. And without further ado, let's take a look at the first of the 2 in line, all about the Conqueror himself, Kang. There's no doubt that 2024 will be a particularly exciting year for all Marvel fans, with Kang the Conqueror sitting at the top of things, a character who was introduced in the first season's finale of the Loki series, and who is expected to make his first proper debut in the upcoming Ant-Man movie, with him being the one to take the center stage of the next Avengers movie, the 5th in line. Lifted straight from the comics, the title of the 5th Avengers movie might hint toward many of the things that will be happening over the course of it, which is a good thing since we don't know anything official for the movie outside of the title itself. The story taken from the comics was written by Kurt Busiek in the years 2001 and 2002, which saw the time-traveling Kang the Conqueror and his son Scarlet Centurion make a devastating attack on Earth, one of the most spectacular events to ever be published in any comic book at that point, with Kang placing the entire world under siege and destroying Washington, D.C. in a horrific reprisal when the Avengers tried to fight back. The whole idea was that Kang actually conquered the planet, and the Avengers were there serving as some sort of a resistance army, who eventually managed to overthrow him, but the events of the last clash between them saw the fall of one of the most powerful heroes Marvel Comics ever had, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, a huge sacrifice that only an event of this caliber would suffice. One thing to note moving forward is the fact of just how much the MCU will adapt from the comic storyline of the same name, and we're saying this because the franchise has had its fair share of lifting the names of major events but adapting them liberally. Avengers Age of Ultron, for example, bore absolutely no relationship to the comic book event after which it was named.
We will. Whatever it takes.
As for MCU's Kang the Conqueror, even at this point, he's a very different character from the one in the comics. He has been reinvented as a key player in the multiversal war that is ahead of us, with different versions of the character clashing, and as an aftermath, the entire multiverse hanging in the balance. Loki and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness are probably the biggest talking points right now, as the 2 projects are the ones that focused a lot of their attention on the multiverse itself, with the 2 projects saying that this conflict between the different versions of Kang the Conqueror could potentially cause all timelines to collide, which we think will be the case, as they would eventually cause the other big event in the comics, Secret Wars, which to some extent will also be adapted in the MCU, in the 6th Avengers movies.
They're not stopping.
Neither are we.
The word dynasty is particularly interesting, given that it's closely connected to the Egyptian pharaohs, which leads us to the next thing we want to talk about, one of the most notable incarnations of Kang the Conqueror, Pharaoh Ramatut, who ruled Egypt in ancient times. This is where Moon Knight comes to the spotlight, a series that already teased Rama-Tooth's presence in the MCU's main timeline through various Easter eggs. Thus, we think it's quite possible that MCU's versions of Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, will involve the Egyptian version of Kang, ultimately making Moon Knight a very important part of the MCU than he had previously seemed to be. One of the biggest questions regarding the upcoming MCU events is whether Marvel Studios could live up to the expectations of the Multiverse saga being an even bigger one when compared to the legendary Infinity Saga, and Kevin Feige was quick on his feet to address the topic. He pointed out that they aren't intentionally making it bigger, but rather given the premise of the storyline and the characters involved. Marvel Studios cannot help but increase the scale of their crossover movies. Currently, there are no directors attached to the movie, however. Recent rumors suggest that it will be the Russo brothers that will return to direct the 2 upcoming Avengers movies, which is a good thing seeing how well they did with the previous installments, but note, this is just a rumor, so don't take our word for it just yet, as there's still so much time until the movie starts filming ahead of its release in 2025.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
On the other hand, given the back-to-back releases of the 2 movies and the bigger stories to be told, it's highly likely that Marvel Studios will actively look for even more directors than just Anthony and Joseph Russo. There's a presumption that the 2 upcoming movies will be bigger and better in every aspect than anything we've ever seen before from the MCU, something the Russo brothers themselves acknowledged, but the challenge of sticking the landing for the Multiverse saga will also depend on how well Marvel Studios will set the entire thing up. And since the current storyline is faster paced than the one which leads up to the Infinity Saga, the franchise will probably have higher risks along the way of laying the groundwork for the 2 biggest movies to come. Thus, it'll be an interesting thing to see how things will unfold in the upcoming years before the 2 movies arrive. But seeing how Marvel Studios is not planning to slow down, you should get ready as the hype train has already started. On a related note, tell us down in the comments below what are your thoughts on Kang the Conqueror now that you've learned a little more about the character as well as what he's capable of. Where do you think the movie will go, and just how accurate MCU's adaptation of the Kang Dynasty storyline will eventually be according to you. But also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.